My name is Gemma. I'm 40, and almost a year ago I made the choice that cost me everything. It began with intentions. My husband's mother, Felicity, moved in after a broken leg. We promised it was temporary. Time stretched, nerves frayed, gratitude soured into silence. One night, exhausted and furious, I slid a brochure across my husband's desk and said words that still burn my tongue, me or her. In the months that followed, a door closed, another opened, and I watched my marriage walk through it. This is not a confession or a plea, the map of how I got lost. One day in the late evening, Felicity fell. She was 86, tiny but stubborn, carrying 2 paper bags up the 3 steps to her yellow bungalow when her foot missed the last riser. Later, the ER would name it cleanly: femoral neck fracture, surgery in the morning, a parade of blood thinners and physical therapy. But in that moment, it was just the sound of groceries splitting and someone I loved trying not to cry. Hunter, my husband of 15 years, signed forms while I called relatives. He runs a small home renovation company, the kind that lives on deposits and timing. That night, he was only a son. When the nurse began to explain caregivers and post-op routines, Felicity cut her off. "I'm not an invalid," she said. "I'm inconvenienced. Pride is its own anesthesia." We brought her to our house. The guest room became a recovery ward, rented hospital bed, walker angled toward the dresser, a shower chair she swore she wouldn't touch. I learned the transfer from bed to chair without twisting the hip, the ice-on/ice-off rhythm, the pillbox with a lid that hated my thumbs. At first we told each other it was temporary, heal, then home. Bones at 86 keep their own pace. Spring stretched into summer. The staples came out. The walker narrowed to a cane she left behind in rooms. The physical therapist clapped. Felicity pretended not to enjoy it. Hunter's smile was real, but by then his phone was buzzing for other reasons. His business had always been a careful balance. Kitchens and bathrooms, 6-week dreams that look easy on television until interest rates wobble and clients get scared. 2 big jobs evaporated in the same month. A general contractor he trusted folded, taking our receivables with him. A supplier sat on lumber Hunter had already paid for and wanted fresh cash before release. Payroll stayed due. The bank that held his line of credit wanted forecasts that sounded like fiction. Nights migrated to the kitchen table. We spread invoices and spreadsheets like a map of a country sinking into the sea. Hunter spoke to a lawyer about bankruptcy, came home gray and whispered, "If I can bridge 1 quarter, I can fix it." He said it like a prayer he was trying to believe. Felicity listened from a chair, her knitting clicking in steady time. On a quiet Sunday, she set the needles down. "Sell my house," she said, as if suggesting we pick up milk. "Mom, no," Hunter said. "It's paid off, it's your safety." "My son is my safety," she answered. "A house is wood and taxes. I won't watch you drown." It happened fast. A developer offered a clean number and a quick close. We signed papers in an office that smelled like toner. 3 weeks later, the money hit, the spreadsheet stopped screaming, and the yellow bungalow, with the treacherous steps and the bedroom full of sunlight, belonged to someone who would likely tear it down. When the dust settled, there was nowhere for Felicity to return to. We rolled the hospital bed out and brought in her old quilt and a box of photographs by the window. She smoothed the coverlet with both hands. "Until the end of my days," she said. And just like that, what was temporary became the shape of our lives. When Felicity's hip healed and she started moving like herself again, life got harder for me in a way no one warned me about. The pain meds were gone, the walker folded, the cane forgotten. What stayed was her opinion of my work. I'm an HR manager. I work from home. Most days are a line of online meetings, interviews, performance reviews, conflict checks, policy updates. It's talking, yes, but it's the kind of talking where one wrong sentence can cost someone their job or the company a lawsuit. I put a soft, "In a meeting, please knock" sign on my office door. It didn't slow her down. 3 minutes into a candidate interview, the door swung open. "Gemma, where's the salt? The one I like?" I muted, smiled at the candidate as if nothing happened, and pointed Felicity to the cabinet. She looked at my laptop, the faces in little boxes, and blinked. This can't be real work, she said later, genuinely confused. You just talk to people all day. For this they pay you? I tried explanations. It's confidential, Mom, I told her. Please knock. I printed my schedule and stuck it to the fridge. I reminded her in the morning, from 10 to 12 I can't be interrupted unless it's urgent. At 10:07, she came in again. Mail didn't come yesterday. Did you forget to tell them we live here? Our relationship shifted by inches. Nothing dramatic, just a steady scrape. I'd pick up a plant and feel the soil soggy. She'd watered them twice in the same day because they looked thirsty. I'd explain gently that succulents don't need that much. She'd nod, and the next afternoon she'd do it again. I only wanted to help, she'd say, offended at my tone. The pan incident was worse. Her favorite skillet was older than Hunter, warped, blackened, the handle loose. I threw it out during a cleaning spree and replaced it with a decent nonstick. She found the new one and looked at me like I'd buried a dog. That pan made your husband's first pancakes, she said. It was my mother's. I didn't know, I said, but the apology sounded thin even to me. I could have asked. She could have labeled it. We both could have paused. By then we were keeping score. She critiqued the way I stacked plates. I hid her stacks of old circulars because they made me itch. She rewound the washing machine after I'd set it. Your program wastes water. I moved the mail to a box by the door. She moved it back to the table because that's where mail goes. None of it was big enough to justify a fight, and yet we argued constantly, little flare-ups that burned hotter than they should. Hunter tried to mediate. She's old, he would say at night. She doesn't understand Zooms and calendars. She thinks work is a factory or an office with a time clock. I've told her, I said. I've told her a dozen times. She saved my business, he said, quiet. Can we just be softer? Now, I can admit I could have been. I could have laughed at the interruptions, put a lock on the door, taken my calls from a cafe twice a week. I could have kept the stupid pan. But in the moment, it felt like death by 1,000 small cuts. It felt intentional even when it wasn't. It felt like I was the guest in a house where I paid the utilities. We stopped talking easily. Meals were logistics. Do you need the car? Did you feed the cat? Felicity told a neighbor on the phone that Hunter's wife works on the computer, whatever that means. I heard it from the hallway and hated how much it stung. It didn't happen in one day. It happened in dozens of tiny moments, piled up until the room felt crowded even when no one was in it. And it was from that crowded feeling that the worst ideas begin to look like solutions. 2 years of small frictions wore me thin. I woke up tense and went to bed wired. Hunter and I started quarreling over nothing. Dishes left to dry, the thermostat, whose turn it was to pick up cat litter. None of it was about dishes. All of it was about Felicity. Please be softer with her, Hunter said one night, folding a towel like it might break. She's 86. She doesn't like me, I said. She doesn't respect me. I could hear how defensive I sounded and couldn't stop. Do you remember when she told Mrs. Barlow that you never loved anyone the way you loved your first crush from school? She said it while I was in the room. She didn't mean it like that, he said. She says things. She says things that cut, I answered. He rubbed his forehead. She sold her house to save my business. We owe her, Gem. I know we owe her, I said. But does that mean I don't get a door that stays closed when I'm working? Does it mean my job is a joke because it happens on a screen? We went in circles. Gratitude, boundaries. She's old. I'm here too. He'd end with, please just try. And I'd end with, I have been trying. Somewhere in that spin, I understood something I didn't want to admit. Our life wasn't going back to what it was. Even if Felicity stayed polite for a week, even if Hunter remembered to defend my office door, the center of the house had shifted. I wanted my marriage back. Our marriage, not this careful roommate version of it. The brochure wasn't the plan at first. It was a possibility I let myself hold. High-end elder care, on-site nurses, physical therapy, a garden. The reviews read like love letters. It was expensive, which felt like proof it would be gentle. I told myself it could be a compromise. The care Felicity refused from a stranger, given by professionals she might actually respect. We could visit every day. We could breathe. I didn't rehearse a speech. I didn't time it thoughtfully. One afternoon, while Hunter was in the garage looking for a wrench, I set the brochure on his desk and walked away. It was the smallest motion, paper on wood. Yet I knew, even as my hand lifted, that I had just nudged something heavy and fragile toward an edge. Hunter came into the room holding the brochure like it was dirty. "It was you who put this on my desk?" "Yes," I said. "We need to talk about it." "There's nothing to talk about," he snapped. "I'm not sending my mother to a nursing home. Ever." My cheeks went hot. "Then what about me? My work? Our marriage?" "She's 86, he shot back. "She sold her house for me. We take care of family." The words I should have swallowed jumped out anyway. "Then choose, me or her." He went very still, like the air had left the room. "I don't believe this is my wife." Something inside me tilted. In that second I felt outnumbered in my own house. His mother's quilts on the guest bed, her knitting on the sofa arm, her casseroles in our freezer. I walked to the closet, pulled down a suitcase, and started throwing clothes into it. I didn't fold. I didn't think. I needed him to know I wasn't bluffing. "Gemma, stop." He grabbed the zipper. "Don't do this." "I can't stay here and be the enemy," I said. "Not in my own home." "It's not like that." "It is exactly like that." We stood there, hands on opposite sides of a half-zipped suitcase, staring at each other like strangers. He let go first. "You're overreacting." "Maybe," I said, even though I didn't believe it. "But I'm done being the only one compromising." I booked a room at the chain hotel off the highway. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee. I lay on a hard bed, shoes still on, and watched the red glow of the digital clock crawl past midnight. I tried to list the ways I could have handled it better. Talk first, not ultimatum. Ask for a trial week at a day program. Bring a mediator. Every idea arrived 2 hours too late. In the morning, my phone rang. Hunter's name lit the screen. I let it buzz once, twice, then answered. His voice was flat from no sleep. "Okay," he said. "Just give me a month. I'll explain it to her. I'll find a good place." I sat up. "Are you sure?" "No," he admitted. "But I'll do it." We were quiet a moment, both of us listening to what we'd set in motion. "A month," I said finally. "A month," he agreed. When I hung up, I stared at the beige ceiling and felt two things at once. Relief so sharp it hurt, and a fear I couldn't name, like the first tremor before a crack runs through glass. A month later, Hunter drove Felicity to the care home. I packed her cardigan and the photograph of the yellow bungalow she refused to call gone. She didn't look at me when we wheeled her in. The receptionist asked for an emergency contact. Felicity said, "My son," without a glance in my direction. Cold, polite, finished. I told myself we both needed time to cool down. Time had fixed bones. Maybe it could fix pride. Her room was small but bright. Bed by a window, a low dresser, a pinboard for pictures. A nurse named Carla explained the routine. Vitals at 7, breakfast at 8, physical therapy twice a week, card games and garden time if the weather held. "We'll keep her moving," she said. Felicity nodded like she was indulging them. Hunter grew quiet after the move, not angry so much as hollowed out. He came home later, ate standing up, and scrolled his phone until the screen timed out against his palm. I mistook the distance for grief and told myself it would pass once our lives weren't orbiting Felicity's needs. Soon we'd be ourselves again, the version of us from before the fall. Dinners that were not logistics, weekends that were not chores. For the first week, we visited together, every few days, an hour at a time. I brought flowers once and felt foolish as soon as I set them down. When Felicity addressed her answers to Hunter and her silences to me, I decided space was the kinder route. After that, he went without me. I called it strategy when it was avoidance. At home, quiet expanded like a new room in an old house. My meetings ran start to finish without a door swinging open. I added a lock to the office anyway, then didn't need to use it. No one overwatered my plants. I repotted the ones that could be saved and set a schedule on my phone. I took Felicity's stacks of clipped recipes and old circulars and slid them into the garage, then hid her dented mixing bowls behind a row of casserole dishes I actually used. The countertops looked like a magazine. I could breathe. I felt, if not happy, then light. Lighter than I had in 2 years. I made pasta with too much garlic because no one would wrinkle her nose at the smell. I worked late because no one would ask why the mail hadn't come. I went to bed and slept through the night without inventorying new reasons to be careful. I told myself this was the reset we needed, that time softens edges and separate roofs solve stubbornness. I told myself Hunter's distance was temporary, the slow thaw after a hard season. I told myself a lot of things. What I didn't tell myself, what I couldn't even imagine, was how quickly a clear sky can curdle. While I was pruning dead leaves and filing away the last of Felicity's life into labeled bins, a different weather pattern was forming just out of sight, and the first roll of thunder was already on its way. A few months in, I noticed a pattern. Hunter drove straight from work to the care home and stayed until 9, the latest they allowed visitors. He came back smelling faintly of hand sanitizer and cafeteria coffee, humming sometimes, light on his feet in a way he wasn't at home. He'd kiss my cheek, ask if I'd eaten, and then go quiet, scrolling his phone until the screen dimmed in his palm. I told myself it was guilt, habit, love. 3 years of tending to Felicity had carved a groove in his day. Of course he missed the routine. Of course he felt responsible now that she was somewhere new. It would pass once the new normal settled. I kept saying that like a charm against worry. One Thursday, I slid 2 train tickets across the table. "Weekend away," I said. "Small town, a guest house with a terrace, no chores, no laundry, just you and me." He stared at the tickets like they were written in another language. "I can't this weekend." "You can't?" I had already booked the room, packed the sunscreen in my head, pictured us asleep without alarms. "Why?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "They're doing a lotto championship. I said I'd support Mom. She's one of the best." "Lotto," I repeated, and tried to keep my voice even. "Like bingo." "Yeah, they've been practicing. She's excited." I wanted to argue. Instead, I swallowed and nodded. "Okay, choose your mom this time." I forced a smile. "I'll go with Lena. We'll send you photos of sunshine to make you jealous." It was, objectively, a good weekend. We walked by water, ate cheap oysters, didn't talk about Felicity or spreadsheets. My phone stayed face down more than face up. For 40 hours, I remembered what it felt like to be someone whose life wasn't always adjusting to other people's needs. When I came home Sunday night, Hunter was happier than I'd seen him in months. He was putting dishes away, whistling off-key. "What's the occasion?" I asked, setting my bag down. "Mom won," he said, grinning. "First place. She's unbeatable." "Proud son," I said, and meant it. "You look victorious yourself." He laughed. "Visitors and staff had our own bracket. I took second. Only Nina beat me." I blinked. "Who's Nina?" "She works there," he said, already turning away. "She helps with activities." He rinsed a glass and left the room. After that, the visits stretched longer. He knew the schedule by heart. When physiotherapy ended, when the good desserts made it to the dining room. He started wearing the button-downs he normally saved for estimates. "Because it's chilly in there," he said, and brought little things. Peaches, crossword books, a new cardigan Felicity didn't need, but liked to hold. He began to talk about the home the way people talk about a second workplace. "Carla's off Mondays, so Tuesdays are better for Mom's mood," he'd say. Or, "They changed the way they call numbers. It's faster." Once, he laughed at dinner and said, "Nina's ruthless. She taught me to watch the diagonals. That's how she beat me." He caught himself then, as if he'd revealed too much about nothing at all, and added, "It's silly." I told myself this was good. He was engaged. Felicity was thriving. My job was quiet, my plants were alive, the counters were clear. I could focus finally on the life we were rebuilding. But the quiet started to feel different. Less like peace and more like a room with a closed door at the end of the hall. If I asked how his evening went, he'd say, "Fine," and change the subject. If I suggested a movie, he'd check the time and say, "Maybe tomorrow." At 9:15, the garage door would rumble and he'd come home humming a tune I didn't recognize. I either missed the signs or I refused to read them. I told myself a story I preferred, that this was a phase, a penance, a son making up for a hard choice. The storm was closer than I knew. By the third month, guilt settled into me like a hum I couldn't shut off. It was there when I buttered toast, when I waited for meetings to start, when I folded laundry by the soft blue light of the TV I wasn't watching. I kept replaying my own worst cuts, the rolled eyes, the clipped tone, that glossy brochure I'd slid across Hunter's desk like it was a document and not a dare. Felicity had sold her house to rescue his business. She'd learned to walk again under our roof. What I had done, even if I still believed it was the only way left, felt selfish on my tongue. The more Hunter went to the care home, the more that guilt grew teeth. We barely overlapped anymore. Our conversations thinned to reminders and logistics. There's milk in the door. The cat's appointment is Tuesday. Do you need the car tomorrow? We'd pass in the hallway and step aside for each other as if we were neighbors in a narrow stairwell. I was angry at him for being elsewhere. He was angry at me for being the reason his mother wasn't here. Or maybe angry is too sharp a word for what had settled between us. It was distance, like a draft you only notice when the room goes quiet. He left for work early, texted that he'd go straight to Mom, and most nights came home at 9, the latest they let visitors stay. He'd smell faintly of hand sanitizer and institutional coffee. He'd kiss my cheek, ask if I'd eaten, then scroll his phone until the screen dimmed against his palm. I tried small repairs. Dinner kept warm, a show waiting on pause, a question softened at the edges. Mostly, I tried not to pick at the quiet. One morning, when the light through the kitchen window turned everything the color of tea, I made a choice. After Hunter left, I took the car. I didn't text him. I didn't want to announce a good deed and ask for a reward. I wanted to do one decent, simple thing and let him find it on its own. On the drive, I rehearsed what I'd say to Felicity. "I'm sorry, I pushed too hard. Would you like to come for lunch on Sunday? I'll make the soup you'd ask me to make when you were tired, the tomato one with the little pasta. We can take a short walk if you feel up to it. We can try again." The care home's parking lot was already half full. I turned toward a space near the hedge and saw Hunter's truck near the gate. For a split second, I thought I'd mixed up the time, that he'd said straight to Mom and I'd simply not heard. Then I saw him. He stood by the gate with a woman in navy scrubs and a gray cardigan. Her badge lanyard caught in the morning light. He pulled a single yellow flower from behind his back. She laughed, open, surprised, and the sound carried just far enough for me to feel it in my chest. He leaned in and kissed her cheek. Not a dramatic kiss. Nothing greedy or furtive. It was the small, easy kind people give when a ritual has already been established. "Good morning, there you are." She slid the flower stem first into her pocket as if that pocket had held things like it before. He squeezed her hand and walked to his truck. A moment later, brake lights, turn signal, the quiet departure I knew by heart. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until they hurt. This is nothing, I tried to tell myself. Staff appreciation, a joke, a thank you. It didn't fit. The ease between them had a shape, and even if I refused to name it, my body did not. I sat there and counted breaths. 4 in, 4 out. Again. I watched the minute hand crawl a quarter turn. The shaking eased enough to let me feel the key against my palm. I got out of the car. Inside, the lobby smelled like coffee and disinfectant. A display of crocheted lap blankets sat beneath a corkboard with volunteer shifts. The receptionist looked up and smiled, the careful, cheerful way people are taught to when they pronounce unfamiliar names. "I'm here to see Felicity," I said, giving my last name. My voice sounded normal. It felt like betrayal. "One moment," she said, and reached for the phone. "Someone will take you down." Footsteps approached. Quick, light. The woman from the gate appeared. Scrubs, cardigan, the yellow flower tucked neatly into her pocket. Up close, she looked perhaps a few years younger than me, the kind of tired that comes from lifting and listening and not always sleeping well. Her eyes dropped to the clipboard, then lifted to me. Mrs. Harrison, Gemma Harrison, I said. Color rose fast in her cheeks. I'll show you, she murmured, already turning down the corridor. As she moved, her badge swung and steadied. I read the name then. Nina. We passed the activity room where someone called numbers into a microphone and a circle of residents laughed softly, not quite in sync. We passed a window where two men debated the final puzzle piece with familiar, friendly seriousness. My heart did the dull, hard thudding that belongs to stairs. At Felicity's door, Nina pointed to the handle. Brisk, bright. Here you go. Then she vanished, efficient as someone stepping out of the way of a cart. Felicity looked up from a magazine when I stepped in. Surprise flickered across her face and rearranged itself into a politeness so complete it could be mistaken for warmth. Oh, she said. Gemma, sit. I sat. I couldn't make my mouth obey me. Whatever lived in my expression made her eyes narrow the way they did when she was trying to guess what was burning in the oven before she opened the door. Something happened to Hunter? Her voice sharpened into the line a mother throws out into dangerous water. You look like you'll faint. Is my son okay? I haven't seen him for 3 days. The words rang, clear as glass. 3 days. My tidy explanation of his absence, every night until 9, split cleanly down the middle. At least lately he hadn't been coming to see her. After he met Nina, at least he hadn't. The knowledge slid in and found a place that would ache for a long time. He's fine, I said, the syllables steadying themselves despite me. Busy. She studied my face a moment longer, then let me off the hook with a small nod that felt like mercy. Why are you here alone? She asked. I came to apologize, I said. The admission scraped on the way out. For how it happened, for how I was. I shouldn't have pushed the way I did or made Hunter choose in a sentence. I wanted to ask what you miss. If you'd like to come for lunch on Sunday. I can bring food here if that's easier. Or whatever you'd like. She set the magazine aside, aligning its corners with the table, a tiny ritual of order I had once dismissed as fussy. She didn't speak for a dozen ticks of the wall clock. It happened, she said at last. Not a pardon, not a rebuke. Just the fact placed between us so we could both see it. Then, softer. You came alone. That's good. I nodded. I kept my eyes on my hands so I wouldn't ask the wrong question or tell the wrong truth. Who was the woman who walked me here? I asked, careful and neutral. She met me at the desk. Nina, Felicity said, and for the first time in weeks, something like warmth moved over her face. The kindest girl in the building. She looks you in the eye. Takes good care of me. Never complains. She's paid to, I said before I could stop myself. The words landed cold and small between us. I wanted to reach out and take them back, but words don't work that way. Felicity's gaze sharpened. Something is wrong, she said. It wasn't a question, it was a diagnosis. I wanted to do one thing right, I said. That's all. I let out a breath that shook and tried to turn it into a laugh. If you'd like soup on Sunday, I'll make it. Tomato, if I can find decent tomatoes. They bring soup today, she said, glancing at the clock. Thursdays. Tomato? I asked, matching her tone. If we're lucky, she said. A shadow of humor crossed her mouth and was gone. She folded her hands on the blanket with the brisk grace of a woman who has set tables most of her life. I don't want to come back to your house, she added, not unkindly, simply steady. I don't have a home there. My house is gone. This is where I live. I had known it as a fact. The deed transferred, the guest room never fully hers. Hearing it placed the room differently inside me, a door that belonged to her, a routine that didn't rely on my patience, a staff that coaxed without taking offense. I nodded. I understand, I said. Though what I understood most was that I'd come late and wrong, with ideas that made me feel better more than they helped her. Outside, a cart rattled nearer. Voices braided in the hall. Felicity lifted her chin toward the door the way she used to when dinner was ready and she didn't want to shout. "Thank you for coming," she said. It was not a dismissal. It was a line drawn carefully, the kind you don't cross if you want to be invited back. I stood. For a heartbeat, I thought to lean down and kiss her cheek, but something in her posture, claimed dignity, new and exact, asked me not to. "I'll call," I said, and hated how thin the promise sounded. "You can," she answered. In the corridor, the air smelled of soup and coffee. I stood there long enough to hear a nurse reading names off a clipboard, the quiet scrape of cutlery, a laugh down the hall bright enough that I recognized it without turning. I didn't move toward it. I didn't move at all. I had come to do a simple, good thing. Instead, I had learned something I couldn't unknow and chosen, at least for now, to carry it alone. By the time I reached the parking lot, the light had hardened into a clear, unforgiving white. Hunter's truck was gone. My car waited where I'd left it, too clean, too bright. I sat, closed the door, and let the silence of the cabin hold me up. I pressed my palms flat against my thighs until the sting replaced the ache, counted to 8, and only then turned the key. I drove home slowly, a new quiet settling over me like a blanket I didn't want and couldn't put down. I waited for Hunter on the porch and ran out of tears before the sun went down. By evening, I was emptied out. No anger left, no plan, just a dull ache where feeling should be. The house behind me glowed in rectangles, kitchen, hallway, our bedroom, rooms that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else. He pulled into the driveway late. I saw the slope of his shoulders through the windshield, the disappointed line of his mouth, the look he wore when a job went wrong, until his eyes adjusted and found me sitting in the dark. He pasted on a small smile, like we were neighbors meeting by accident. "Why are you sitting out here?" he asked, keeping his voice light. "I saw everything," I said. The smile fell. For a second, he didn't move. Then he sat beside me on the top step, hands clasped like he was afraid to touch anything. "Gemma," he said softly, "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have lied. It happened so unexpectedly. I didn't even notice when you what?" I asked. He stared at the railing. He didn't say it. "Did you have something with her?" I forced the words out one at a time. "Tell me the truth." "No," he said quickly. "No, I didn't. We kissed, only—" He swallowed. "Twice." The number landed like a strange kind of relief. Something to hold, smaller than the worst thing. I breathed. "If this is your revenge," I said, careful and steady, "for what I made you do with your mother, then we can stop now. We bring Felicity home, we reset, we forget this happened." He didn't answer. "Hunter?" I turned to him. His face had gone slack in the way it does when a decision is finishing inside a person. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "I can't." Heat surged back into my body all at once. "Nina told you to choose and you chose her, over your wife of 15 years? I could hear my voice rise and hated how wild it sounded. "No," he winced. "She didn't tell me to choose." He finally looked at me. "When she saw you today, when she figured out I'm married, she told me not to talk to her about anything except Felicity. She said we should keep it professional. She didn't ask me to choose." "Then go home," I said. "Choose your home." He stood abruptly and went inside. I sat there, blinking at the dark, trying to fit his words into a shape that didn't cut. The front door opened again. He stepped out with a small suitcase. "What are you doing?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'll come tomorrow for the rest," he said. "You've known her for a few months," I said, my voice cracking. "A few months. You don't even know if she wants you. You didn't tell her you had a wife." He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He carried the suitcase down the steps and past the hydrangeas Felicity had insisted we plant the first spring she lived with us. The porch light threw his shadow long across the driveway. He put the suitcase in the trunk, slid behind the wheel, and left without looking back. I sat very still. The crickets were loud, like static. Somewhere close, a neighbor laughed. The porch's painted wood felt rough under my palms. I tried to catalog the facts as if listing them might make them gentler. He said he kissed her. He said twice. He said she told him to keep it professional. He said he can't come home. He took a suitcase. He'll come back for the rest tomorrow. When I finally got up, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I went inside and stood in the kitchen where the clock over the stove kept perfect indifferent time. A glass sat in the sink. His mug from the morning was on the counter. A half-moon of coffee dried at the bottom. I washed it and put it back on the hook because it felt like something I could control. I walked through the rooms the way you walk through a hotel before checkout, making sure nothing you need is left behind. Our bedroom smelled like his cologne and laundry soap. The dent on his side of the mattress looked like a map of a country that no longer existed. In the closet, his shirts hung in their usual order. I pressed my forehead against the doorframe and breathed in the cotton and cedar. On the porch again, the night had cooled. I sat and tried to imagine tomorrow. He would come with a quieter bag, maybe a box. He would fold his jeans and stack his books like a considerate thief. I would say something final and sharp, or nothing at all. I didn't know which would hurt less. The front door creaked. I half expected him, some reversal. The suitcase returned. It was only the air shifting, the house remembering how to settle without the extra weight. I thought about calling someone. Lena, my mother, anyone who could sit on the line and breathe with me. But the story in my mouth wasn't ready to be told. I wrapped my arms around myself and replayed the porch conversation, searching for a corner I could tuck into, a sentence I could rewrite. There wasn't one. He had given me the smallest truth he could bear and then taken the biggest step he could not undo. Somewhere in the house, my phone buzzed, a calendar reminder for a morning meeting. I let it go. The screen darkened. The crickets went on. The night pressed in with the quiet insistence of something that would last. Around midnight, I went inside, turned off the lights, and lay on top of the covers, shoes still on, like that first night at the hotel. I stared at the ceiling and counted the tiny dimples in the plaster until they blurred. Sleep didn't come. Eventually, something like it did. An exhausted blankness where hours disappear and nothing heals. When the sky started to pale, I knew only two things for certain: that I could not unknow what I had seen, and that the next knock on the door would not be my husband coming home, but a man who used to live here arriving to collect the rest of his life. 6 months later, I went outside for the first time with no errand to justify it. My therapist called it a gentle exposure. I called it a walk. I chose Hunter's favorite park, the one with the small lake and the path of maple trees that flame out in autumn. He used to say the water looked like it had learned a new color there. The air was cold enough to sting. I followed the loop, counting benches like they were mile markers. When the path opened to the lake, I saw the white arch first, fabric draped over a metal frame, flowers wired in. A wedding. A photographer crouched near the reeds, calling for shoulders back, chin down. Now laugh like you mean it. I should have turned around. Instead, I drifted closer, the way you do when you want to prove to yourself you can. A cluster of people stood near the arch, bottles of water in their hands, coats pulled over formal wear. And there they were, exactly where the light was softest. Hunter and Nina. He wore a navy suit I didn't recognize. She wore a dress the color of cream, simple, clean, a cardigan over her shoulders against the wind. They were taking pictures, foreheads nearly touching, then turning to the camera, then laughing for real when the photographer said something good. Felicity stood beside a bridesmaid, wrapped in a shawl, smiling like the world had finally arranged itself into a shape that made sense. A couple of mutual friends were there too, people who had stopped answering my texts and apparently hadn't felt the need to explain why. They moved into a series of funny ones, the kind you post later. Wide mouths, arms thrown up, a dip that almost failed and made everyone laugh harder. I watched from a distance where I was only another stranger with cold hands. I didn't cry. There were no tears left for this part. I felt the old pain shift inside me the way a bruise does when you push it. Not worse, exactly. Just a reminder of depth. The wind picked up. Somewhere behind me, a child asked if ducks get married. Someone said they didn't think so. When the photographer finally clapped and shouted, "Last two?" I stepped back onto the path. The lake held the sky like a secret. I felt my feet in my shoes and my breath in the cold and the place where a life used to be. I kept walking until the arch disappeared behind the hill and the maples turned the trail into a tunnel of orange and rust. I did not look back. I tell myself the truth now in full sentences. I made an ultimatum and pretended it was a boundary. I slid a brochure across a desk when I should have asked for help. I let 1,000 little cuts become a single sharp one. Those are my parts. His parts are his. The lie, the kiss, the suitcase, the way he chose to leave. Both can be true at once without canceling each other out. Therapy gave me small work. I learned how to feel an emotion for 90 seconds without trying to fix it. I learned to ask for what I need before I'm so angry the ask becomes a threat. I learned that quiet can be peace or distance, and that you have to name which one it is out loud. I brought structure back to a life that had blown apart. Mornings, a walk, even if it's to the corner and back. Afternoons, work with the door closed and a sign that says so, even if no one is here to ignore it. Evenings, dinner for one, eaten at the table, not the sink. On my bookshelf sits a small plant that prefers neglect. I water it on Sundays and leave it alone the rest of the week. It's thriving. Sometimes I think about Felicity. I don't picture the last day on the porch or the cardigans or the pan I shouldn't have thrown away. I picture her smoothing a blanket with both hands, choosing a routine that belongs to her. I hope her soup is tomato more often than not. As for forgiveness, I treat it like physical therapy. Slow, repetitive, a little boring, often sore. I don't do it for him. I do it so the bruise stops deciding how I move. The lake will be beautiful again next autumn. I might go back. I might sit on a bench and let the wind redden my hands and not think of weddings at all. I might just watch the water take the color it's given and hold it without breaking. That's what I'm trying to do. Hold what happened, learn what I can, and keep walking.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and explore our channel for more love, betrayal, and redemption tales.